Is it fair to seek the death penalty if the evidence you have against somebody was obtained by an illegal and warrantless search and seizure and arrest? That is the question being asked again today by Karen Agnifilo on behalf of Luigi Mangione in a new filing. And we're going to look at the affidavit today in detail a little bit and go back to that thing that I said a long, long time ago, that arrest in Altoon, Pennsylvania of Luigi Mangione was illegal. It was an illegal arrest. It was an illegal detention. It was a warrantless search and seizure. And therefore, everything in there should be fruit of the poisonous tree. And regardless of how you feel about it, that statement is going to come up again. Can you use illegal, warrantless search and seized evidence against somebody and give them the death penalty for it? Let's break down this detail here in today's legal document filed by Karen Agnifilo. The devil is in the details. Let's go. Now, for those who aren't familiar, Luigi Mangione has a website put up by his team, Karen Agnifilo from Agnifilo InTrader. This is their official website, luigimangione.info.com. On this page, if you're not familiar with it, is a list of case updates. And down here at the bottom are three, you can see columns that are the federal case documents, the state case documents, and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania documents. Luigi Mangione is facing trial in three different jurisdictions, three different sovereigns, if you will. The one we're focusing on today is the federal case update, motions filed of 10/10. Now, today is 10/11. You'll notice that the document we're going to look at is actually filed today, this morning, but the motion was filed date 10/10. We're going to look at that motion. Now, there's multiple multiple parts of this motion, some of which are really nuanced, and I'm not an attorney, and I wish I could have my attorney friend on here at the back pocket immediately, but you know what? Attorneys are kind of busy, so we're going to do this as best we can from my perspective. And if I get some of this wrong, then forgive me. I'm doing the best I can, and I'm pretty good at it, but I'm not flawless. So what I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to take you back. I'm going to take you back to something I said a long time ago. That arrest in Altoona, Pennsylvania, regardless of how you feel about it, that arrest was illegal, and the warrantless search and seizure of Luigi Mangione's possessions that resulted in the firearm that was used in the commission of the crime, allegedly, the notebook that supposedly is a manifesto, which I've told you a million times why that's not a manifesto, the confession letter, all that stuff. Regardless of whether they were there or not, you can't use it because it was an illegally seized set of documents. That is called fruit of the poisonous tree. That was an argument I made a long time ago, and I showed you the law. I showed you where what Luigi Mangione did there was not illegal, but what the officers did that day were illegal. And I broke it down in detail, but today we're going to return to that because as we wait for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in this case to rule on whether that was a legal search and seizure, which it was not, in my opinion, why we're waiting for the Commonwealth a year later to get around to telling us whether or not Luigi's arrest was even legal in the first place. Karen Agnifilo is not waiting. Karen Agnifilo is basically saying, screw it. Commonwealth of Pennsylvania isn't going to freaking rule on this thing anytime soon, but we are facing death penalty on Luigi Mangione right now. And so right now, we're going to talk about that illegal arrest, because if they don't want to rule on it, I will tell you what happened, and I'm going to show you what happened. We're going to break it down in today's legal document. So let's put up on screen this document that I just talked about. This is, again, look at the top, filed 10/11/2025. It's a 13-page document. It's not terribly long. The affirmation in support of pretrial motions filed. This is in the case of the United States of America versus Luigi Mangione. And again, for those who are not familiar, let me just be brief about this. Luigi Mangione is facing two different jurisdictions in New York. One is the state of New York versus Luigi Mangione, and one is the United States government versus Luigi Mangione in the Southern District of New York. If that's not confusing, I don't know what is. But that point being is that there are two New York entities that are trying Luigi Mangione, one of which is the state. And in that case, just recently, Judge Caro ruled that first-degree murder in furtherance of an act of terrorism is inappropriate. So Luigi Mangione's attorneys successfully argued there is no terrorism charge that applies here. First-degree murder, therefore, should be taken off the table. This is not furtherance of an act of terrorism. And Judge Caro, in that case, agreed that the state had not made their case that that was murder in furtherance of an act of terrorism, and they dropped the first-degree murder charge. Now Luigi Mangione faces second-degree murder in that state case. Meanwhile, however, Luigi Mangione is also facing prosecution in the federal case, the United States government versus Luigi Mangione in New York, for the same crimes and same circumstances, but we're going to try him in 2 different jurisdictions. That itself is one of Karen Agnifilo's big bitches. You can't try the same guy for the same thing in 2 different jurisdictions. And they have argued successfully that yes, they can indeed try him in 2 different jurisdictions at the same time, because each one of those jurisdictions, the state and the government, have different rules. And so therefore he's not being tried by the same system twice. It's 2 separate systems, and they're allowed to do that. So they've successfully argued that. And if you're confused, I'll do my best to try to break this down for you. But it comes now after successfully removing the first-degree murder charge in the state case, which, by the way, did not carry the death penalty. They don't execute people in the state of New York anymore, but the federal government does try to execute people and is trying to execute Luigi Mangione under a crime with aggravating circumstances. It's not a first-degree murder situation. It's a crime with aggravating circumstances. So after the first-degree murder charge in the state was removed, Karen Agnifilo immediately, along with her counsel, a special counsel on the death penalty, Avi Moskowitz, the 2 of them are working on trying to remove the death penalty by the federal government and saying, look, this is inappropriate to seek death in this situation. And here's part of the reason why. Now, this is only part of the reason why. The other document, or they should say the additional document that goes with this, gets really hairy. I have tried and tried to break it down and be able to explain it to you in simple terms, and it's super difficult. I'm having a hard time understanding it in simple terms. It is really complex. So let's just focus on the easy document today. For this moment, let's focus on the easy document. The affirmation, this is an affirmation in support of pretrial motions. The pretrial motions that we're talking about here is Karen Agnifilo asking, let's remove the death penalty from Luigi Mangione. Let's just make this a simple murder case like any other murder in New York City. There's lots of murders in New York City. Let's make this a simple murder case like every other thing, and quit treating Luigi Mangione like he's special because Brian Thompson was the head of a CEO of a health insurance company. That does not rise to the level of capital murder with aggravating circumstances like you're trying to do. So that's her thing. Treat this like a regular murder. Let's just do that. Let's just treat it like a regular murder. Okay, so let's talk about the details. This is going to get super nuanced. And by the way, there's a new piece of this document, new details about exactly what happened in the arrest of Luigi Mangione. I stated before, at a certain point when Luigi Mangione was read his Miranda rights and they asked him if he wanted to continue giving them the false name of Mark Rosario, which he originally said, hey, my name's Mark, or he gave them identification saying he's Mark Rosario. After they read him his Miranda rights, they said, do you still want to tell us your name is Mark Rosario? And he stopped talking. The explanation of what actually happened is slightly different. In essence, what I just said is 100% correct. I will prove it to you. What I just said was 100% correct. But new details are coming about the timing of when that happened, which I find is really interesting. So I'm going to focus on those when we get to it and show you how there's a slight little difference of what I said, but and that essentially is the same exact thing that I said. Follow my logic. All right, here we go. Karen Agnifilo is finding Karen Friedman Agnifilo, an attorney at law, duly admitted to practice in the Southern District of New York. So she is a lawyer who is licensed to practice in the federal case of Luigi Mangione. She is also licensed to practice in the state case of Luigi Mangione, and therefore Karen Friedman Agnifilo is representing Luigi Mangione in both the state and the federal case. By the way, he has another attorney, Thomas Dickey, in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We'll set that aside for right now, even though everything about, we're going to set it aside in a way. Everything about this document is about that arrest in Altoon, Pennsylvania, with Thomas Dickey, his attorney in Pennsylvania, saying that was an illegal arrest. But the problem is, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania's judge does not want to rule on it yet and say it was illegal, because it was illegal, and I think they don't want it to have to admit that it's illegal or go on record saying it was legal when everybody and their dog should know it was illegal. So Karen is going to go ahead and fight right now that arrest in Pennsylvania. I'm an attorney. And I am an attorney of counsel, why is that having a hard time with that? I am an attorney and of counsel at Agnifilo Intrader LLP, a law firm located in New York City, and I am an attorney for Luigi Mangione. I make this affirmation in support of a motion dated October 10th, 2025, seeking orders. So this affirmation, by the way, dated 10/11. I kind of said this wrong. What we looked at earlier on the screen, let me put it back on screen for just a moment. This is the motion filed on 10/10, and this is an affirmation that supports that filing on 10/10. So I said even that a little bit wrong, but hopefully I'll get you on the right page. I make this affirmation in support of the motion dated October 10, 2025, seeking orders to dismiss counts 3 and 4 of the indictment for failure to state an offense under Code 18 USC Section 924, and so on and so on. Suppressing evidence the government received through warrantless search of Mangione's backpack and suppressing Mangione's statements to law enforcement that were a result of custodial interrogation without Miranda warnings. Okay. So what I'm going to point out, and I realize that right now I'm losing a lot of you on how confusing I just made this. The filing on 1010 is the one I told you is really, really difficult and really, really nuanced and hard to break down. What we're going to focus on today at this moment is the affidavit in support of that really confusing document. This is much more plain English, and that's why we're going to focus on this. It's just super easier. It's straightforward, and we're going to talk about a warrantless search of Luigi Mangione, right? And an interrogation without Miranda warnings, which I told you was the case from the beginning. So here we go. 2, I, Karen Agnifilo, have prepared this affirmation based on my review of the indictment and the discovery provided by government, including body-worn camera footage. So in the arrest of Altoon, Pennsylvania, body-worn camera footage is provided to the counsel and Karen Agnifilo, and she's reviewed it, and she's taken screenshots, some of which are in this document. Some were in the previous document we reviewed already. She goes through a little bit of statements of fact about the shooting of Brian Thompson and some of the things related into NYPD. I normally would break all that down because I find everything that she writes to be fascinating. I almost can't stop reading Karen Agnifilo's writings. It's just freaking, it's like a good freaking Stephen King novel. Only there's no horror involved in this. But the point being is I like reading Karen Agnifilo's stuff. But for the sake of brevity, which I'm not good at, we're going to skip past the statements of what happened on what day and allegedly and get to the meat of it. Now, here we're talking about the arrest in Altoon, Pennsylvania of Luigi Mangione, a person that after scouring videos of a whole bunch of people and NYPD not being able to discover who the shooter was, here comes the arrest, and here's how it works. Number 6.6, as depicted on police body-worn camera footage the morning of December 9th, 2024, the shooting happened on December 4th. 5 days later, this is when the arrest happens. Patrolman Joseph Detweiler and Tyler Fry. Detweiler and Fry, the 2 arresting officers who originally arrived on scene. Patrolman Joseph Detweiler and Tyler Fry of the Altoona Police Department in Pennsylvania responded to a McDonald's restaurant based on a 911 call reporting a, quote, suspicious male that looked like the shooter from New York City. So what was called in to the police was, there's a guy in my lobby who looks like the shooter in New York. That's the alleged start of this whole thing. That's why the police arrived on scene. Arriving at McDonald's, the patrolmen, both in full uniform, both of these officers in full uniform displaying badges, approached Mangione at 9:29 a.m. as he sat at a table in the back of the restaurant. As pictured below, Mr. Mangione was sitting at a corner table with the wall behind him and to his left. So there you go. There's the Luigi Mangione, which his attorneys are not arguing that is indeed Luigi Mangione. He's sitting in a corner. He's got a wall to his over there to his left and a wall behind him. The only egress exit of this area is right there, and that's where the officer is stationed, therefore pinning him against the wall. And they will argue, the prosecution will argue, Mr. Mangione was free to leave at any time he wanted to. He chose to sit in the corner. His fault for sitting in the corner. He was free to leave. He could have pushed right past our officers and strong armed us and elbowed us in the face to get past us if he wanted to. He was free to leave. I'm adding a bunch of shit because that's ridiculous. If you have 2 officers standing in your only exit, you cannot say you are free to leave because your officers are blocking your only path of exit. So, and that was argued by both attorneys, both Thomas Dickey and Karen Agnifilo. I have a lot of passion for this, so let me try to get through this document that I said is easy, and yet I can't because I'm so excited about it. And again, let me caveat for a minute. Why am I excited? I'm not excited about getting a killer off, in case that's what you're thinking. I'm not excited about getting a killer off. What I'm excited about is watching the law play out and watching the law enforcement be held accountable for their actions. You must, if you're going to arrest somebody for violating the law, you yourself must obey the law. You can't be breaking the law while arresting people for breaking the law. That's hypocritical, in my opinion. You're a hypocritical ass if you arrest somebody for breaking the law when you yourself don't obey the law. If you're a law enforcement officer, obey the fucking law. That's all we got to say. If you're a law enforcement, oh, you know what I'm going to do? You just reminded me, everybody. Let's put the parental advisory. Because I just dropped an F-bomb, my first F-bomb of the day. So let's go ahead and just let's go ahead and do that, because I'm probably going to drop an F-bomb or two in the future. All right. So, both patrolmen were armed with firearms visible for all to see. This is going to the argument of Mr. Mangione. It was obvious Mr. Mangione was under detention and was arrested and detained by law enforcement officers in full uniform with weapons that are visible. Therefore, anybody reasonable person would believe that they were under arrest or detainment. Detainment is the big thing. Not under arrest yet, but he was being detained. That's the key to this whole thing. After Patrolman Detweiler asked to see Mr. Mangione's identification, Mr. Mangione is alleged to have provided a New Jersey license in the name of Mark Rosario, and the patrolman asked if Mr. Mangione, if he was from New Jersey and whether he had been to New York recently. Now, I want to stop here. I won't beat the hell out of this, but I have stated over and over again, providing a false identification to a police officer in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is not illegal. I don't give a shit. I don't want to have to fight this every single time I say it. It is not illegal to provide false identification to a police officer in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I cited the law. I cited appellate courts, higher level courts that ruled when a police officer said, no, you can't do that. That's against the law. And appellate court said, no, officer, you are wrong. In our Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, it is not against the law to provide false identification to a police officer unless you've been informed that you're under investigation, or that and you've been read your Miranda rights. Essentially, if you've been informed that you're under investigation, you cannot provide them false identification. But until that time, until you've been informed you're under investigation, then it is not illegal. It just isn't. So I told you I wasn't going to beat the hell out of it, and I almost beat the hell out of it. But let's move on. So, as Mr. Mangione prepared to eat his food, Patrolman Detweiler moved even closer to Mr. Mangione and asked him what he was doing in New York. Before Mr. Mangione even responded, Patrolman Detweiler asked him to stand up, put his hands on top of his head, with Detweiler grabbing and lifting Mr. Mangione's right wrist above his head. Now, stop. Mr. Mangione has not been told he's under arrest. He has not been read his Miranda rights. He has not even been told he's under investigation. And they're already telling him, stand up, put your hands on your head, grabbing his wrist, spinning him around, doing pat downs. All of that, by the way, is presumed to be being detained by police officers. Why would not any reasonable person in America think that they're being detained when two officers in uniform with guns tell you, stand up, put your hands on your head, grab your wrist, flip you around, start patting you down, but they're going to maintain. They have the freaking audacity to maintain. Mr. Mangione was free to leave at any time. He wasn't even under detention at that point. Okay. Let's go. Before Mr. Mangione even responded, Patrolman asked him to stand up, put his hands on his head. We got that all right. Patrolman Detweiler asked Mr. Mangione why he was so nervous. Why are you nervous? We got two big police officers standing in front of you with guns and full uniforms telling you, stand up, put your hand on your head, spin around. Why are you so nervous? Well, I'd be a little fucking nervous as well. I'm just going to be honest with you. If I didn't shoot anybody, I'd be nervous in that situation. So the patrolman asked him to stay. Okay, so Patrolman Detweiler asked Mr. Mangione why he was nervous as Detweiler frisked Mr. Mangione. Patrolman Detweiler ordered Mangione to sit back down at the table and directed Patrolman Fry to talk to Mr. Mangione, while Detweiler motioned for Fry to move physically closer to Mangione to reinforce Mangione's inability to leave. As the video shows, Mr. Mangione was cooperative and complied with every request. Why is this important? The officers and prosecutors will continually tell you Mr. Mangione was free to leave at any time. What the body-worn camera will show, as Karen Agnifilo says, is an officer literally motioned the officer to stand closer, pinning Luigi Mangione in the corner after telling him stand up, put your hands on your head, spinning him around, patting him down, putting him in sitting his ass back down in the corner, and then positioning, move closer and pin him in the corner. All of that. The prosecution and officers will continue to say he was free to go at any time he fucking wanted to. He was not under a detention at all. Au contraire, mon frere, is how I would say Karen Agnifilo is trying to make that point. No, video shows clearly he was being detained. And you're thinking, who cares? If he did it, he should be detained. He is under investigation. Well, let's continue to break down the argument. As Patrolman Fry effectively had Mr. Mangione in custody, That's what Karen's saying. He's effectively in custody already. He is in custody already. He's already been stood up. He's been patted down. He's been sat back down, and officers are pinning him in the corner. He is effectively in custody already. As Patrolman Fry effectively had Mangione in custody while he stood watching over him and blocked any potential exit, because that's the only place he can go, Patrolman Detweiler then went outside to call another officer and tell him he was 100% sure Mr. Mangione was the individual that law enforcement was looking for connected to the December 4th shooting in New York. Why is that important? I believe that is important. She doesn't hit it super hard in here, but I believe it's important. What the officers and the prosecution will try to tell you is that they were simply investigating the possibility that Luigi Mangione could be the guy. Therefore, certain things are allowed by law enforcement. Some level of detention is allowed by law enforcement when they're trying to determine if a crime has been committed, if a person is the person that they're looking for. That allows a certain bit of latitude. What Karen's going to point out is the officer went outside and told somebody, I am 100% certain this is the shooter from New York. 100. So you're not under investigation. You're not investigating to see whether Luigi Mangione is the shooter. You are already 100% sure you've got the right guy. That is what she's pointing out. Don't try to pull this bullshit of we were still trying to determine if he was a shooter. An officer literally went outside and I've said, I am 100% certain that's the shooter from New York. So you can't pull the thing. We were still kind of trying to figure out if he was the guy. You already said, you know, he was the guy. All right. Patrolman Detweiler returned to the back area of the McDonald's to further interrogate Mr. Mangione and asked again if he was from New Jersey, what he was doing in Altoona, and whether he had been to New York recently. So this is obviously meant to shake Luigi Mangione up. We know who you are. Are you really from New Jersey? What were you doing in New York? Did you just get back from New York? They are trying to let him know. We know who you are because they know who he is, allegedly. They know. It's not an investigation. They know who he is, according to this. Even though Patrolman Detweiler had already decided, listen to this, even though Patrolman Detweiler had already decided that Mr. Mangione was the New York shooter, he told Mr. Mangione as a pretext for the police interaction that they were there because Mr. Mangione had been at McDonald's for 40 minutes. Listen. The officers essentially are using a loophole. We're allowed to look into things if we're not sure that a crime's been committed. So we've been called to McDonald's because they say you've been loitering. You've been at McDonald's for 40 minutes. That's what we're here for, which is a lie. Because the officers already had stated that they are 100% certain that this is the shooter from New York. They know who he is. So now they're telling Mangione, they're lying to Mangione and not saying, by the way, you're being investigated due to suspicion of being the shooter in New York. That's how it should have gone down. Instead, what they do is they lie to Mr. Mangione and they tell him, hey, look, we were called here because you've been loitering. That's not what's happening. They believe he's the shooter from New York, and that's what's happening. All right, so let's continue on with the nuances of the law. All right, Patrolman Fry remained in his strategic position, blocking Mr. Mangione's exit as Detweiler continued to interrogate Mr. Mangione. This is a detention and interrogation for believing that he committed a crime, and he should be informed of that you are under investigation. That's the whole point of Miranda rights. Hey, by the way, we believe you did something wrong, so you have the right to remain silent because we believe you did a crime. That's the way it's supposed to work. Here's why you're being detained. We believe you're the shooter, and you have the right to keep your mouth shut. Instead, they're like, hey, look, in fact, at some point in here, a fucking officer will even tell him, you're not under interrogation. They'll tell him he's not when he clearly is. And why is it important? Because at the point that you are, you must be read your Miranda rights and informed that you have the right to remain silent. They don't do that for a F ton of long time. Let's find out when it happens. It's gonna be all laid out here. At 9:41 a.m., 12 minutes after they first approached Mangione, 12 minutes have gone by. 12 minutes have gone by. He has not been read his Miranda rights. He has not been informed he's under investigation, even though an officer has already stated, we're 100% sure this is the guy. We know it's the shooter, but Mangione has not been told that. In fact, Mangione's been told that he's loitering, that he's been there for too long. That's what he's been told. At 9:41 a.m., 12 minutes after they first approached Mangione, Patrolman Detweiler moved a backpack from the floor where Patrolman Fry had been blocking Mr. Mangione's path to an area far out of Mangione's reach. Huge point. Let me finish the sentence. In the next minute, 5 additional uniformed armed officers enter the back area of the McDonald's where Mr. Mangione was pinned in. This right here is a huge, huge moment. You have to understand. When they separated Luigi Mangione from his backpack so that he was well away from it and stationed 5 officers between him and his backpack, they will try to tell you later on that they searched his backpack in part because they were afraid he could get to his backpack. He could not get to his backpack. His backpack had been removed away from him and officers were placed between him and his backpack. So any kind of concern the officers might have that Mangione could go for a weapon in the backpack has been removed. They've literally moved his bag out of his possession so he can't reach it and stationed 5 officers between him and his backpack. So when they try to pull that bullshit, well, for our own safety of officers, we want to make sure Luigi couldn't get into his backpack. My ass. You have already separated him from his backpack and placed it 6 feet away and placed 5 officers between him and his backpack. All of what's going to happen, 100% illegal, in my opinion. And I would argue, in the opinion of Thomas Dickey in Pennsylvania, his attorney there, and in my opinion, Karen Agnifilo, his attorney in the state in the federal case in New York. All of these lawyers, and maybe I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, but those lawyers certainly do. And they're saying it's all illegal. And I agree. Point 12. Detweiler ordered another officer to stand next to Patrolman Fry, forming an armed human wall, trapping Mangione at the back of the restaurant as Detweiler walked outside to talk with officers to confirm that Mr. Mangione fit the description of the New York suspect. They already believe he's the suspect. He's not being informed he's the suspect. He's being told he's loitering. Detweiler orders more officers to stand between Luigi Mangione and the exit so that Luigi Mangione cannot leave, while those sons of bitches will tell you Mr. Mangione was free to leave at any time he wanted to. I'm sorry that your guy decided to just stand there while we continued this because he could have left anytime he wanted. My ass. And anybody who watches the video, and I haven't seen the video, but I can tell you this, the way that it's described by Thomas Dickey and Karen Agnifilo, it's probably not even a question. It happened exactly like they're saying it. And a judge gets to look at it themselves. So the judge is going to know it's going to happen exactly like they're saying it happened. When Detweiler returned to McDonald's at 9:45 a.m., 3 patrolmen were surrounding Mr. Mangione, and Mr. Mangione's backpack was approximately 6 feet away on a table. Notably, 2 of the patrolmen were positioned between Mangione and the backpack. So here you have in this picture, if you're looking, and I don't have my mouse blown up really, or my cursor. Oh yeah, by the way, thank you for your sons of bitches out there to decide to bust my nuts because devil's advocates, that thing on your screen is not your mouse, it's your cursor. Oh my God, dude, get a fucking life. So my cursor is over. Thank you for correcting me. It's not my mouse on the screen. If you want to see my mouse, no, I'm not going to do it. Thank you for correcting me. It's not my mouse on the screen. It's my cursor. So good job. All right. So there you see with my cursor moving around that's the backpack in black over there, well outside of the reach of Luigi Mangione. He could not get to it. And there's a couple of officers surrounding Mr. Mangione in the only spot that Luigi Mangione could exit, blocking his exit from the corner of that room. Now, at 9:46 a.m., with 8 officers now on the scene, another officer asked Patrolman Detweiler if he had read Mangione his rights as required by the Supreme Court's ruling in Miranda versus Arizona. This is effing key. A more senior, perhaps more savvy officer sees what's going on, sees this guy's pinned in the corner, sees that they're separating him from his backpack, sees that they believe that he's the shooter. And he's like, hey, just want to make sure you guys all read his Miranda rights because this is a detention. That's what I'm going to tell you is happening. A senior officer anyone with fucking 2 cents of a brain can look around and go, that guy's detained. So did you guys all read him his Miranda rights? No, we have not. That officer, in my opinion, knows damn well they're fucked. He knows it. And I'm sorry, my language is brutal. My channel is not for everybody. If you can't handle big boy words, you probably shouldn't listen to me because the more passionate I am about something, and I'm passionate about law and civil liberty issues, I'm passionate. When I get passionate, I get pissy and I get vulgar sometimes. But I try to save them for appropriate moments, so bear with me. All right. When Patrolman Detweiler responded that he had not read the Miranda rights, the officer then told Detweiler to tell Mr. Mangione that he was under official police investigation and read him his rights. I paraphrase that, but that's exactly what happened. And a more savvy officer said, holy shit, this guy's under detention. Have you read him his rights? Detweiler admits, I have not read him his rights. And that guy said, right now, make sure he's been informed he's under investigation, because he has been since the very beginning of this whole thing. Make sure you tell him he's under investigation and that you've read him his Miranda rights for F's sake. For F's sake, before you screw this all up. It's too late. They've already screwed it up. All right. Now, Patrolman Detweiler then informed, I'm adding the word then, Patrolman Detweiler informed Mr. Mangione that he was under official police investigation. Here it comes. We're 15 minutes in, 16 minutes in, and they're finally telling him that you're under investigation. Let me read it again. Patrolman Detweiler informed Mr. Mangione he was under official police investigation and that he would be arrested for false ID if he gave the officers a false name again. Stop and listen. What did I tell you? It is not illegal to provide false identification to a police officer unless you've been informed you're under investigation. And at this point, the officer says, you are now under investigation and you will be arrested if you tell us your name is Mark Rosario again, and it's not. Because this officer is finally understanding the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania's law. Everything prior to that, the false identification, Mark Rosario ID, is not illegal. This officer, I think, understands this at this point. Now that you've been informed that you're under investigation, do you still want to give me the name of Mark Rosario? So let me repeat this. This is important. Listen. Patrolman Detweiler informed Mangione that he was under official police investigation and that he would be arrested for false ID if he gave the officer the false name again. But Detweiler did not provide Mr. Mangione Miranda warning as the other officer had instructed. Oh my God, Detweiler. Dude, if you got the bad guy, why the fuck can you not listen to your other officer? A senior officer, I don't want to say senior because maybe I'm misusing that word, a more savvy officer has just said, have you informed him he's under investigation? Because I can tell he's detained. So have you told him he's under investigation? And have you read him his rights? No, Detweiler says. Then do it right now. And so what does Detweiler do? Half the equation. By the way, you're under investigation. So if you tell us your name is Mark Rosario again, I'm going to arrest you for false ID. And then does not read his Miranda rights. An officer just said, do two things. He did one. He didn't read Miranda rights. And maybe you're thinking, I don't care. If he's a bad guy, he's a bad guy. F him. I'm sorry. If you're gonna hold somebody accountable for breaking the law, how about you also obey the law? That would be great. It's my take. That's my devil's advocate's position. If you're gonna arrest somebody for breaking the law, you yourself should be obeying the law. Now, Patrolman Detweiler then continued his custodial, non-Mirandized interrogation. I love Karen Agnifilo. She just spells. I'm gonna spell it out, bitch. I'm continuing my custodial arrest of you and non-Mirandized interrogation of Mr. Mangione by asking if his name is Mark Rosario. So before saying you have the right to remain silent, Detweiler goes into more questions. Is your name Mark Rosario? Now, here's where it gets nuanced because I didn't catch this. This is new to me. This is the stuff I told you. Slightly different than what I said. Because what I said was in the first video, at the moment Luigi Mangione was informed he was under arrest or under investigation and read his Miranda rights, he said that they asked, do you want to still give us that name, Mark Rosario? And he stopped speaking. He just shook his head no. That's not how it actually happened. Slight difference, and I'll explain this. So Mr. Patrolman Detweiler then continued his custodial non-Mirandized interrogation of Mr. Mangione by asking if his name was Mark Rosario, to which Mangione responded no. So he did verbally say a word no. I said before, he shut his mouth and didn't say a word afterwards. What I said was, if you go back and listen to me, because again, the people who want to correct me on whether or not my mouse or my cursor is on the screen are also going to fucking bust my balls on whether or not I said that. Well, as soon as they said this, he never spoke a word again. And here he's speaking. Yes, but he also hasn't been read his Miranda rights yet. So listen. Mr. Mangione, they asked him if his name was Mark Rosario, to which Mangione responded no. Patrolman Detweiler asked Mr. Mangione for his real name and his date of birth, and which Mr. Mangione provided. So Mangione is speaking still at this point. He is still speaking. So they said, if you tell me again your name is Mark Rosario, now that you've been informed you're under investigation, you will be arrested. So is your name Mark Rosario? No, he says. What is your real name? And allegedly he tells them, my name is Luigi Mangione. Or if you want to go Mangione, or if you want to do Mangione, I don't know. The point being is that everybody argues about how it be pronounced, but Mangione is how I'm going to say it because that's a whole other story. The point being is that Luigi is still talking, but he also hasn't been read his Miranda rights. And he's simply doing the threat. He's responding to the threat the officer made. If you tell me again, your name is Mark Rosario, after right now I just informed you you're under investigation, you will be arrested. So are you Mark Rosario? No. So what's your name? Luigi Mangione. Okay, here we go. Another officer at the scene asked Mr. Mangione twice why he'd lied about his name. So if your name is Luigi Mangione, why'd you tell us you were, and he hasn't been read his Miranda rights, by the way. He's still being interrogated and his Miranda rights have not been read. He has not been told. And I know a lot of you don't get it. I really know a lot of you don't get it. Why do you have to be told that you have the right? Everybody knows you have the right to remain silent. No, there's a reason why we have the law. There's a reason why cases get thrown out if you weren't read your Miranda rights. It happens all the time. It is how you have to do it. So continuing to ask Luigi Mangione incriminating questions before being read his Miranda rights is a problem. But it's not even going to be the biggest problem. It's not even going to be the biggest problem. So another officer at the scene asked Mangione twice why he lied about his name. At this time, there were 9 officers surrounding Mangione and blocking his exit from McDonald's. At 9:48 a.m., exactly 20 minutes after law enforcement first approached Mr. Mangione and prevented him from leaving and asked him numerous interrogating questions, Patrolman Stephen Fox finally read Mr. Mangione his Miranda warning. Oh my God. 20 minutes. I said before in a previous video, it was 17 minutes. 20 minutes. 20 minutes go by of a detention and interrogation, including questions of Luigi Mangione before he's been informed. He's informed he's under investigation a few minutes ago, but before he's been read his Miranda rights, 20 minutes go by before he's read his Miranda rights. It's going to be huge. Listen. After informing Mr. Mangione of his constitutionally protected right, after informing you of your constitutional rights, after informing Mr. Mangione of his constitutionally protected right to remain silent, Patrolman Fox asked Mr. Mangione if he wanted to talk to law enforcement. Mr. Mangione exercised his constitutional right that he was just informed of to remain silent and express that he did not want to speak to law enforcement. How did he do that? By shaking his head no, is what I said. This is why I said, as soon as Luigi Mangione was read his Miranda rights and they asked him, do you want to keep pulling this story about you not being Mark Rosario? He shook his head no. He wasn't even talking at that point. And essentially what I said was correct. Essentially what I said was correct, right? At some point he was warned, if you tell us again you're Mark Rosario, you will be arrested. And he talked. Okay, no, I'm not. My name is Luigi Mangione. But he still hadn't been read his Miranda rights. At the moment that he's read his Miranda rights, now he stops talking. This is what I got slightly wrong, but at the end, who gives a shit? Why am I spending so much time? Because some of you bust my nuts over the smallest of things because you want to discredit me. You want to discredit my channel because I said my mouse was on the screen instead of a cursor. That's the kind of morons I have to deal with. So I'm trying to address that a little bit. All right, so we're going to continue. Patrolman Fox told Mr. Mangione that he was not in custody at this point. Patrolman Fox told Mangione he was not in custody at this point, despite the fact that at this moment, there were 10 officers at the back of McDonald's where Mr. Mangione was sitting, and they had already decided with 100% certainty he was the shooter, and he was clearly in custody and not free to leave. That is Karen Agnifilo's position. That is my position. Luigi Mangione was already detained. Luigi Mangione was already being told by officers to other officers, I'm 100% certain this is the shooter. This is why we have him detained. And they're lying to Mangione saying, you aren't in custody at this point. You're not in custody. The fact that there's 9 officers pinning you in the wall and forcing you to stand up and place your hands on top of your head and pat you down and sit your ass back down and form a human wall of police officers, none of that is a detention, Mr. Mangione. You were free to leave at any time you wanted to. Fuck off. Anyways, all right, so Patrolman Fox then asked Mr. Mangione why he had a fake ID. After Mangione did not answer Why is Mr. Mangione not answering those questions? Because he's been informed that he has the right to remain silent, and anything he says could be used against him in a court of law. And so now that he knows his constitutionally mandated rights and been informed of his rights, he's not talking. He's not talking. So after Mangione did not answer, Patrolman Fox ordered Mr. Mangione to stand up, put his hands on the wall so that Fox could pat him down. And as the video depicts, Mr. Mangione complied with all of these directives. Still not officially being told he's being arrested. At 9:50 a.m., approximately 90 seconds after telling Mangione he was not in custody, even though he was surrounded by officers, and after he'd already been patted down twice and frisked twice, Patrolman Fox then handcuffed Mr. Mangione, thoroughly searched him again. Mr. Mangione remained standing, handcuffed, and surrounded by officers as they waited for verification of his identification. Okay, still haven't told him he's under arrest. And there's a picture of Mangione in handcuffs with his hands behind his back. A fuck ton of officers. 1, 2, okay, that's not like an official number. How about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on screen? They say 9 at some point. At 9:54 a.m., Patrolman Detweiler walked out of the McDonald's to discuss Mr. Mangione's identification with another officer. During this conversation, and without any explanation, Patrolman Detweiler covers his body worn camera with his hand to prevent the camera from recording 20 seconds of his conversation. Why, officer, are you hiding that conversation? Now, there are times, to be fair, when officers are allowed to turn off or hide their body-worn camera if they're talking about something that in certain circumstances would be a violation of somebody's privacy or whatever. So that's what they're of course going to argue. But Karen Agnifilo is saying without explanation, you haven't told us why it was necessary for you to cover the microphone, because the attorneys should know. We in America may not need to know, but the attorneys certainly need to know. What was you covering the microphone for? What were you protecting? I need to know that. What was said? I need to know as his attorney. I need to know what it was you covered the microphone for, because that's important. Now, at 9:58 a.m., several officers started searching Mr. Mangione's jacket and pockets and searched him again. At this time, Patrolman Christy Wasser and Patrolman Fox began searching through his backpack that law enforcement had placed on a table out of Mangione's reach for more than 17 minutes earlier. Mr. Mangione has been separated from his backpack for 17 minutes. He has no access to the backpack, and there's a wall of officers between him and his backpack. Yet, listen what they're going to say. As part of this warrantless search, or part of these warrantless searches, these meaning patting himself down and searching his pockets, in addition to also searching his backpack, these plural warrantless searches, Patrolman Wasser, is that Christy Wasser? I think it was Christy, right? Was it Christy? I don't know. I'm just trying to get their names memorized and burned into my memory. Anyways, Detective Wasser, sorry, was she Patrolman Christy Wasser. Let's get the details. Patrolman Wasser and Patrolman Fox. Okay. So let's go back. All right. So as part of these warrantless searches, Patrolman Wasser opened Mr. Mangione's backpack and fully searched the backpack, its compartments, and its contents, including closed bags that were within the backpack, while Mr. Mangione was handcuffed and surrounded by officers who were positioned between Mr. Mangione and his backpack. Going through his backpack, one little nuance can say could be allowed if the officers are looking for, say, a bomb, which is what Christy's going to tell you. Going through the packages and sealed packages inside the backpack, that's a little harder to justify. We'll get to that in a minute. So there's a picture of Luigi Mangione. There's Christy Wasser with the blonde hair, and Fox, the other officer, going through and searching his backpack while Mangione is handcuffed with his hands behind the back. So they know he's not going to go for a weapon in the backpack. His hands are literally cuffed behind his back. He's surrounded by police officers. There's no threat here at all. As part of this warrantless search inside the McDonald's, Patrolman Fox retrieved a small item from inside the backpack that was enclosed in cardboard and wrapped in tape. Patrolman Fox took out his knife and sliced open the tape to find a computer chip inside. This, in addition, is a major problem in my opinion. They are not just looking physically at what they've got here and going, okay, are we safe? Okay, that's good. If as long as we're safe and we know we're safe, we'll go back to the station and get a warrant to search his belongings. No, they're literally cutting open items inside his backpack and full digging in a warrantless search. There's no warrant for this search they're doing. And they're going to try to argue, oh, well, we're just protecting safety. but you'll see Karen Agnifilo say, I cry horse shit. All right. The officers continued their warrantless search through Mangione's backpack at McDonald's, even after he was removed from the restaurant by officers and driven to the police precinct. They're continuing to search this horribly dangerous backpack of Luigi Mangione while he's already en route to the police precinct. During this continued search of the backpack, Patrolman Wasser recovered a gun magazine loaded with bullets. Now realizing she had made a potentially devastating mistake by thoroughly searching the backpack for a murder suspect in a significant New York press case without warrant, Wasser suddenly stated that she was searching through the backpack at McDonald's to make sure there wasn't any bomb or anything in there before putting it back in her car. Why is this important? According to Karen Agnifilo, and of course they're gonna argue Karen Agnifilo cannot possibly know what was going through Christy Wasser's head when she said that. But what Karen Agnifilo is alleging is that officer Christy Wasserman Christy Wasser just realized she had fucked up. This is the moment Christy realized she had fucked up. When she realized that she was actually searching that backpack without a search warrant and had something that they need a search warrant for. So now Christy Wasser, in Karen Agnifilo's interpretation, realized this is the moment Christy Wasser fucked up. And so she's got to be like, oh shit, I need an explanation for why I'm searching Luigi Mangione's backpack without a warrant. I'm looking for a bomb, making sure that we're all safe here. Here's where Karen Agnifilo is going to call horseshit to that. The falsity of that comment was made clear seconds. I think she meant seconds later. So the falsity of that comment was made clear seconds when later another officer at McDonald's stated, now that we found the loaded magazine, let's just bring it back to the precinct. Suddenly, not concerned about a bomb, Patrolman Wasser places all the items back into the backpack and stopped searching. Patrolman Wasser repeated her comment that she was making sure there were no bombs in the backpack, as another officer commented that at this point, we probably need a search warrant for it. Holy fart. Follow the logic. Wasser knows she just screwed up. They need a warrant to do what they're doing. She's then backpedals and said, oh, I'm searching this because I'm afraid there might be a bomb in there. They say, we should probably get a warrant for what we're doing. We should probably get a warrant for what we're already doing. Well, the cat's out of the bag. Or the gun's already out of the bag, or whatever you want to say. The point being is that they've got a problem at this point, and they're trying to backpedal. Let's go with the bomb scare story. We're afraid there's a bomb, and then let's properly get a warrant because we can't do what we're doing. So let's backpedal now and do it right. I'm sorry you guys have body worn camera footage, because that's going to be a problem for you in this case. So suddenly not concerned about a bomb, Patrolman Wasser places all the items back into the backpack and stops searching. Patrolman Wasser then repeats her comment that she was just making sure there was no bombs inside, as another officer comments that they probably need a warrant. Without calling for the bomb squad, Christy's now not concerned at all about a bomb. Without calling for a bomb squad, I'm concerned there's a bomb in this backpack, but we're not going to call in a bomb squad. I'm going to repack the bag, even though I think there might be an explosive bomb in there, and I'm going to put it in my car, even though I think there's a bomb in there, or could be. So none of it's congruent with what she's saying, because it's a lie. Without calling for the bomb squad, evacuating McDonald's, or even searching for a bomb, Patrolman Wasser placed the backpack in her police car and brought it to the precinct. We're concerned there might be a bomb in there, but I'm just going to go ahead and stop searching it as soon as an officer says, you know what, we probably need a warrant for that. Okay, I'll just put it back in my car. Not concerned about anybody at McDonald's, not concerned about the other officer's safety, not concerned about myself as I put it in my car because I think there might be a bomb in there, or could be. I'm just going to go ahead and just take it back to the precinct and get that warrant we should have had from the beginning. Patrolman Wasser leaves McDonald's at 10:04 a.m. and there is no body-worn camera footage from her for the next 11 minutes as she drove to the precinct with the backpack in question. No one but Christy Wasser, who has shown herself to be an upstanding patrolman by doing an illegal search and seizure to begin with and finding shit that's going to be used to convict Luigi Mangione, that person is going to go ahead and be off camera with that backpack for 11 minutes with no explanation of that. Or maybe she just didn't have to have it on. So maybe that's the explanation. Point being is that whatever the case may be, Patrolman Wasser has the one who's getting evidence that is going to be illegally used, has that backpack for 11 minutes where nobody gets to see what's happening. At 10:16 a.m., 1 minute after arriving at the precinct, Patrolman Wasser continued her warrantless search of the backpack. For God's sake, do you not learn the lesson? You just got told we probably need a warrant for this. We need to take the backpack back to the precinct, and we probably need a warrant for it. And fucking Christy Wasser still can't help herself. I got to keep going through that backpack. Now, listen, here's where the really sketchy comes in. 11 minutes, she has the backpack. 11 minutes we can't account for. Nobody sees anything. Backpack and Patrolman Wasser are completely off the radar. Nothing can be seen about what happened on that drive back to the precinct. And here's what Christy does with the backpack. Listen carefully. Patrolman Wasser first reopened the same backpack compartment that she had started searching at McDonald's before immediately closing that compartment and opening the front compartment of the backpack as if she was specifically looking for something, and instantly she found a handgun in the front compartment. What Karen Agnifilo is very carefully saying is, how fucking convenient for you. You illegally are searching his backpack in the McDonald's. You tell us you're afraid there's a bomb, so you repack the backpack and you take it. Nobody sees what you're doing for 11 minutes. And then when you come back to the precinct and start again illegally searching the backpack, you open up a compartment immediately, like you know what you're going to find there, and go, look, I found a gun. No shit. Does that look suspicious to anyone but Karen Agnifilo? Because that's what Karen is trying to say carefully. That looks suspicious as F to me. The officer leaves the precinct with a bag that's been illegally searched without a warrant, leaves for 11 minutes where nobody sees what's going on, but yet somehow mysteriously knows exactly what compartment to open up, and I found the gun! How nice for you. Now, after finding the gun at the precinct, Patrolman Wasser then explains to another officer that she quickly searched the bag at McDonald's to make sure that there were no bombs or anything in it. She's still sticking by that, I'm just looking for a bomb. Patrolman Wasser did not explain why she did not seek a warrant once she was at the precinct. You literally had an officer at the McDonald's say, we probably need to take this back to the precinct and get a warrant to search. No explanation is given why Wasser decides to continue to search that backpack after she's even been told by another savvy officer, you need a warrant to do what you're doing. And by the way, if that wasn't the case, why is an officer telling her that? If it's not a case that they don't have to have a warrant, why is another officer saying, we probably need to get a warrant for this? So for those of you who say officers don't need a warrant for that, then why is an officer saying we probably need a warrant for it? That's what I wanted to. You guys, there's a lot of you that bust my nuts out there. Devil's advocates, they don't need a warrant for that. Then why is another officer saying we need a warrant for that? Why is that the case? If I'm a moron and cops don't need a warrant, why is an officer saying we probably need a warrant for that? So screw me. Apparently I'm the idiot. But even an officer seems to think you need a warrant for that. Patrolman Wasser continued to rummage through the search. Patrolman Wasser continued to rummage through and search the backpack in the hallway at the precinct without a warrant, and recovered a silencer, a red notebook containing Mr. Mangione's personal writings, additional writings, and a computer chip, an iPhone, and several USB flash drives. I think Christy Wasser, one could argue, wants to be the hero. Look at all the shit that I found. Woohoo! I'm going to get Cop of the Year. I found all this cool shit. Over 7 hours after the warrantless search of Mr. Mangione's backpack, the Altoona Police Department finally sought a search warrant at 5:14 p.m. 7 hours after the illegal arrest and detention of Luigi Mangione and warrantless search and seizure of his body and his backpack, all on the auspice of we're looking for a gun or a bomb, while she's continuing to search for the backpack bomb. Instead of bringing in the bomb squad or getting other officers out of the building because there might be a bomb, I'm just going to go through that bomb-laden bag myself and go, look what I found, people. So 7 hours later, they finally get a search warrant. This warrant application sought permission to search and seize the items from Mr. Mangione's backpack that law enforcement had already searched several times and seized that morning. So the warrant that gets signed 7 hours later is to look for the things they already have in their possession. Hey, can we have permission to look for these things? Yes, you can. Judge signed off. Yes, you may have a warrant to look for those things. Good, because we already have those things. We just want to have some paperwork done to say that we can do it. What we already have. I hope to God we have some good judges in this country, because this should be an open and shut illegal search and seizure and fruit of the poisonous tree. Mr. Mangione was formally arrested. Now he's formally arrested because they've got a search warrant and they found illegal shit on them that was used in the commission of a crime. And hey, looks like you've got shit that you shouldn't have. And here's our warrant saying we had a right to get it. And now you're under arrest. Mr. Mangione was formally arrested and charged in Altoona with forgery, possession of a weapon, and tampering with records of identification. That's the false identification, passport, and driver's license that he had on him. Possession of an instrument of a crime for possessing a silencer, and furnishing a false identification to a law enforcement officer. That part right there, furnishing false identification to a law enforcement officer, is not illegal in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I'm just sorry, it's just not. Why? Because Luigi Mangione had not been informed he's under investigation, and it's not illegal to do so until you've been informed. And we know when it happened, and that's an open and shut deal. Will a judge have the nerve to actually uphold the law? Because the appellate courts have overruled judges before when they got it wrong. So maybe it'll happen again, even if you don't have a judge willing to uphold the law. All right, we're approaching 1 hour, which is great because I'm right on pace. I like to do things in about an hour. We're almost done with this document. It's almost an hour. Woohoo! On me, on my internal clock. Now, on December 17th, 2024, the New York County District's Attorney's Office publicly announced that Mr. Mangione had been charged by a grand jury on an 11-count indictment. What is a grand jury? A grand jury is a jury that's convened in private, not to determine if a person's guilty or not, but to determine whether or not the prosecution has enough evidence to proceed to trial. That's all a jury does. That's all a grand jury does. Did the prosecution get enough information that it's worth going to trial on? And a grand jury decided that with the gun and the confession letter and all the things they said they had to a grand jury, yes, we can proceed to trial. Had the grand jury known that those were illegally obtained items, they probably wouldn't have indicted, but that's a whole nother story. The point being is that based on the evidence that the grand jury saw, which by the way, the defense is never present during that, so the defense didn't get to argue why it was an illegal arrest. All the grand jury got to see is, hey guys, here's what we found on Luigi Mangione. Can we take him to trial? Yeah, with that kind of information, you can take that guy to trial. But they don't get to talk about how it was an illegal arrest at the grand jury indictment. So during a press conference by the Manhattan District Attorney at the NYPD Police Commissioner and the NYPD Police Commissioner announcing those charges, there was no mention whatsoever of any federal case. So right now it's all purely the state of New York prosecuting Luigi Mangione. Then on December 19th, 2024, after waiving extradition to New York, because Mr. Mangione didn't even know he was going to be charged with death penalty charges in the federal government. He's just simply, hey, you're wanted in New York. Okay, I'll go back to New York for facing charges in New York. There was nothing about the federal case. So on December 19th, after waiving extradition to New York, Mr. Mangione was transported via procession in a fleet of over a dozen police cars and flown via plane, helicopter to New York City and from Pennsylvania. Upon arrival, Mr. Mangione was paraded in the choreographed, highly publicized perp walk by the NYPD, the FBI, and the New York City mayor himself. Huge also deal. That's a huge other prejudicial deal that Karen Agnifilo is working on. We're almost done. Let's get this done. Later that morning, counsel was on their way to the state court for previously arranged Supreme Court arraignment at 2 p.m. I've said this before. The federal government literally came in and hoodwinked Karen Agnifilo's client. She was going to court that day for her client, Luigi Mangione, to represent him in the state case, and she was hijacked by the federal government with a surprise attack. Surprise, the federal government is also going to charge Luigi Mangione with murder and are seeking the death penalty. Now, they didn't fully say the death penalty part yet. That came later. But the point being is that this was completely unexpected. She was literally there for his state appearance, and then the federal government came in and arrested him. Before Mr. Mangione could be brought to the state court for his planned arraignment, for which he had waived his extradition to New York from Pennsylvania, the FBI unexpectedly seized custody of Mr. Mangione from local authorities and brought him into the Southern District of New York, where he was charged by a federal complaint filed the night before, charging Mr. Mangione with stalking, counts 1 and 2, murder through the use of a firearm, count 3, and firearms offense, count 4. These charges are based on the identical facts and evidence as the New York State Court indictment. Mr. Mangione was remanded into federal custody at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, where he is currently still detained. This is going to get too much for us to cover right now. I cover it on many of my videos about the legal nuances of the federal government taking Luigi. So first of all, Pennsylvania has the custodial right to Luigi Mangione. They're the ones that arrested him. They should have the first right to arrest him. Then the state of New York said, we would like him in New York. And Pennsylvania allowed him to go to New York to face murder charges in New York. And then the federal government came in at the last minute and swooped him up and said, all you other jurisdictions can go piss off. We're taking Luigi Mangione because this is a federal crime and we'll prosecute him federally. And ever since then, Luigi Mangione has been in the custody of the federal government, while Pennsylvania has a right to try him first. The state had him next, and the federal government came in last and said, this is a federal case and we're making a statement for Trump. That's my interpretation of Pam Bondi's message. I've been directed by Donald Trump to be hard on crime, and Mr. Mangione is worthy of death, and we're going to get him on this. So they rushed in and took over the entire investigation, took him from multiple jurisdictions, and the feds have never let him go ever since. On April 1st, 2025, the United States Attorney, that's Attorney General, so that's Pam Bondi I just talked about. On April 1st, the United States Attorney General directed the Southern District of New York prosecutors to seek the death penalty. Donald Trump has ordered me to be hard on crime. You will seek the death penalty against Luigi Mangione under my direction. That was what happened. On April 17th, 2025, the federal prosecutors formally indicted Mr. Mangione for charges listed in the federal complaint. So they played games with Karen. We're not really looking to go about federal death charges. We're not going to seek the death penalty. Just relax. It hasn't been filed. And then without telling Karen they changed their mind, he's been officially charged with the death penalty. We are going to go for the death penalty on this. The conclusion. At exactly 1 hour. Holy shit. Based on the facts alleged in this affirmation and the attached memorandum of law, counsel respectfully requests that the court issue orders dismissing counts 3 and 4 of the indictment, suppressing the evidence recovered from law enforcement's warrantless search of Mr. Mangione's backpack and the McDonald's, and suppressing Mr. Mangione's statements to law enforcement at the McDonald's that were obtained through custodial interrogation without Miranda warnings. That's the summary. Karen Agnifilo again is saying, look, Pennsylvania won't get around to talking about whether that was an illegal arrest, but you want to keep going forward. You want to keep going forward with executing my client for charges based on evidence that was illegally obtained. That arrest in Altoon, Pennsylvania was illegal. I've listed all the reasons why it's illegal. And if Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is not going to rule on it, you better rule on it. And she has a much, much longer document explaining why count 3 and 4 must be dismissed. That's really complex. I think it's probably something I'm trying to debate whether I'm going to break it down for you or not. It's super complex. But for the time being, I just wanted to hit again one more time this masterful work, in my opinion, that states Luigi Mangione was illegally detained and his possessions illegally and searched without a warrant. Officers on scene said, oh my God, has anybody read him his Miranda rights? No, they have not. Oh my God, we probably need a warrant for what we're doing. Did anybody get a warrant? No. 7 hours afterwards, they get a warrant. They screwed that up 6 ways from Sunday. Will a judge have the nuts, the stones, the huevos, the balls, the eggs, whatever, to actually do the right thing and rule on this and say, I'm sorry, you especially can't go put this guy to death with evidence that shouldn't even be in our courtroom. Use something else, and we're going to take that off the table. That's what's on the play today. And again, whether you feel Luigi Mangione is guilty or not, whether you feel he should be punished or not, the argument is it okay to put somebody to death when you violate the law to try to put him to death? Think on that, ponder that. Let me know what you think in the comments. Have a great day.